Hi everyone, Dave here at East Rosebud Fly and Tackle, Billings, Montana. Welcome. Today I'm going to tie a leech pattern for you out of mohair. Mohair is not used as much as it used to be, which is a shame. It's an outstanding material for leeches, as I'll show you. Now, leeches occur in a wide variety of aquatic habitats, not just lakes and ponds. Larger rivers like the Bighorn, the Yellowstone, particularly when you get the backwaters or sloughs where it's warm, you've got vegetation growing, zooplankton on the rocks, that's where they like to be. And fish love leeches. Now, one of the best times to fish leech patterns is actually early spring, right after ice out. Two reasons. One, the fish themselves are coming into the shallow to feed because the water's warmer, increases their metabolism. Secondly, this is when leeches mate and spawn, right after ice out. So remember that early spring is a great time to be fishing leeches. And the leeches around here are usually 2 inches or less. So you do not need to tie these 6-inch mega patterns. Trout autopsies have found out that there's never been a big leech in a trout stomach. It's always been the smaller ones for whatever reason. So let's tie this. For the hook, I'm using a standard 3x long streamer hook, be like a TMC 5263. This is a size 8. They also tie them in size 10s. This is a 1/8 inch fire bead, just to give this a little bit of a hot spot. Pardon me. I'm also going to use just a little bit, 6 wraps of .020 lead wire, just to help this break the surface tension. Once this mohair gets wet, you won't have any problems with that. But this leech will land very lightly, which means you can fish it in close and shallow without spooking fish. Clean that up and tuck it in. I'm using 8/0 Veevus thread. Any black thread will do. Build up a bit of a thread dam here. And bring it all the way to the end of the hook shank. Now, one of the key features of a leech pattern is slimness. You do not want to overdo it with the materials. So I'm going to be using blood quill Marabou, but I'm not going to use the whole feather. I'm just going to strip off. Anytime you have 2 colors, you want to make sure the darker color is on top. I'm just going to strip off some fibers here. Measure these about hook shank in length. I can trim this up with my fingers here in just a second. A couple of wraps here. And instead of chasing this around the hook shank as we wrap forward, go ahead and bring your thread forward and your Marabou on top of that. If you want to trim Marabou, it's always best to pinch it off instead of cutting it with scissors. It gives it a little bit more of a natural look to it. I'm going to use just a little bit of flash. This is rainbow crystal flash. I'm using it because it has the maroons, the reds, and the blacks, which I'm going to be using in the fly itself. Just a few strands. Fold this over the thread and wrap back over. Not only does this tie the crystal flash down, but it finishes tying off the Marabou as well. And I like to cut it off about the end of the Marabou. Now the black will go on top. Same thing, just take some fibers off the side. People make a mistake of thinking the more materials they add, the more motion it will give the fly, and that's not true. More materials just block action. So less is better. I'm actually going to trim this down where I get into the thicker portion of this Marabou. and trim that off. You see, I've been doing all this up against the back of the lead wraps. It's important anytime you have an overbody that your underbody is as smooth and even as possible. Well, you can buy mohair a couple different ways. You can buy it what's carded, like this. You're used to seeing this with poly yarn, or you can buy it uni yarn in a spool like this. So however you like to do it, there's a lot of colors out there, so lots of opportunities. I like red and black. I also like purple and black, or just black alone. So I've got about 8 inches here of each of these for up the end. The mohair is a particular species of goat, and this actually isn't the Chanel or anything like that. This is made the same way you used to make thread. It's on a spinning loom. I'm going to go ahead and tie it in here at the back of the bead, all the way back. And then bring your thread back forward. All right, now I'm going to take this and hold both ends together and twist them. If you try to just brush out the mohair strand by itself, there's a very good chance you're going to end up breaking it, because like I said, it really doesn't have a core. So I'm just going to twist these 2 strands together like this. Gives you a striped effect, and leeches have all kinds of patterns on them, stripes, lots of things like that. Before I wrap it, I'm going to brush it out. And this is the real beauty of mohair, is to get all these fibers brushed out. It makes for beautiful movement. Wrap it on with touching turns. Stroke those turns back. Right up to the back of the bead. Make sure you tie it down tightly. Bring these fibers back and get several more tight turns over the end of that. And then whip finish. Minimal amount of materials. The materials aren't expensive, and it does not take much time to make. So I would recommend that you tie some leeches in some different color combinations like I mentioned, and let the fish tell you what you want. Fish it in shallow water with just some very slow retrieves and let it sink. Very slow retrieves, let it sink. Leeches are not speed demons, so we don't want to fish it that way. So there you have simple mohair leech. Thanks for joining in. We'll see you next time.